Back. Thank you so much for joining me, for joining us this morning for learning. As we jump into Likutei Moharan from Rabbi Nachman's Zayin Aleinu, we began yesterday, we made quite a good beginning into Torah Zayin. And in brief review, we have been speaking about the way that the tzaddik approaches nature, the way that tzaddik approaches the natural world. You got a chance to listen to the recording? Okay, so we'll do a little bit of review briefly. It's a simple idea, but we spent a lot of time on it yesterday because it's very deep and it's very new. But basically, the tzaddik looks at the world in such a way where he sees nature not just as embodying the chachma of Hashem, which we spoke about in Torah Aleph, but the way that nature encapsulates the ratzon of Hashem, the motivation and the desire, because every single thing that a person sees in nature is exactly the way Hashem wanted it. It's rooted in the ratzon of Hashem. This thing is embodying Hashem's motivation, Hashem's will. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create the whole world bichlal, and then the world bipratus with each and every particular species and creature, and then the world biprate pratus within each creature? Why does this limb look the way it looks, and all the details look the way that it looks of that creature? And the answer is, Chazal tell us, B'shvil Yisrael shenikaracious. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world so that Klal Yisrael could do their mission, could bring the whole humanity back, like we had learned in Torah Zayin, right? That we can be the Mamlechas Kayan of a God Kadosh that we're supposed to be. Says Rabbi Nachman, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has such hisparus, has such pride from Klal Yisrael, like the pasuk says, Yisrael asher b'cha espa'er, that really, in a certain sense, it's the pride that HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked forward to prior to creation, to receiving from Klal Yisrael, that ended up motivating all of creation, and that continues to motivate creation. The pasuk says, if it were not for my bris that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has with Klal Yisrael, that the whole world wouldn't stand, right? The whole world is standing on that. Yom hashishi, Chazal tell us, the whole world was talav ha'omen until Klal Yisrael received the Torah, and then from then on, the world is fortified vis-a-vis how Klal Yisrael are doing. But ultimately, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has pride from Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Nachman described this kedai, just to look at it and to read it. Rabbi Nachman described how Hashem has such nachas and such pleasure and such pride, not just from Klal Yisrael, b'chlal, and not even just from every particular Jew, but even within the pratis of every Jew, every part of the Jewish experience. Rabbi Nachman said, just read it again, Ki yesh b'chol echad v'echad Yisrael esparas pratos. Every single Jew gives HaKadosh Baruch Hu a particular kind of pride. V'yesh lefa'amim, there are times sheyesh some Jew is absent-mindedly twirling his payas, and this brings tremendous nachas ruach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Parenthetically, I didn't mention yesterday, but I saw maybe in the purpose the Chachmar brought down in the name of one of the earlier mashpiyim, can't remember right now exactly who it was, who said that the Indian of the paya is like an edge, like the edge of a field, right? It's just like a chukha paya, for a field, but payas is the edges of a person's hair. And he said that peya is also the edges of a Jew's Yiddishkeit. It's the edges of life. It's like sometimes a Jew makes some nanua in my peya shalai, because it doesn't say peyas. Even in the peya, meaning even just in some extremity of his Judaism, makes the tiniest movement, he's not able to really move in. Like the Gemara Brachas tells us, a person should come to shul and should come in shtei psachim, should really come in and not just to sit right by the door. And he's not able to do that. So he makes some small nanua, and that already, Rabbi Nachman says, Hashem is sparas gadol gam nizeh, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu has tremendous pride. So that tzaddik is drawing a direct link between the hisparos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has from each and every member of Klal Yisrael v'prate pratos, and all the prate pratim of creation. Knowing the linkage between the pride that Hashem has from every Jew and the details of every Jew's experience and the details of nature. And he walks around the world and he reveals the hisparos of Klal Yisrael through nature. This is the tzaddik's job, and this is one of the incredible madrigas that the tzaddik reached and reaches. And Reb Nosson, spends a long time in the first, basically 2 columns, I guess, over 3 columns, but 2 columns worth of text. Reb Nosson repeats again and again and again and again, and he says, "Al ken herachti lachsar advarim." That's how he finished yesterday. We go to that kusam v'am kusam, because they're so incredibly deep and they're so incredibly nuanced, and it's such a brand new concept. And so that's what we had learned yesterday. Now we continue. Take a look. It's page Chav Beis on the second column toward the top with the bold. And Rabbi Nassan says, "V'al yedei zeh shahatzadik megale ha'aspar shel Hashem yisbarach shemispaer im Amo Yisrael." By way of this, that the tzaddik is revealing the hisparos, the pride, the adoration that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has from Klal Yisrael within all of creation, because he's focused so much on that and he studies it like a science, and he really recognizes all the different ways in which Klal Yisrael are so wonderful and are so sweet and are so unique and are so special. And through that, all the gates of understanding are open so that it could really understand what nature really is all about and why Hashem wanted, like Rabbi Nachman said, that the lion should look the way the lion looks and the mosquito on the other side of the spectrum looks like the mosquito looks. Why is that? It's through this that Yira and Ava, that we have begun the lesson by saying, just going back to the very first line, Ki Yira v'Ava i'efshar lekabel ki ima yedei tzadik yadar, that the tzaddikim of the generation are revealing what this means, Yiras Hashem, Avas Hashem. So he said, how is that? So it's not just that they're teaching us about Hashem, and that's also true. But Rabbi Nassan is explaining, Rabbi Nachman is explaining, Rabbi Nassan is transcribing, but the Rebbe is explaining that it's specifically through this process of revealing the pride that HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes in Klal Yisrael throughout nature that Yira and Ava are revealed. Because it's through the revelation of the pride that Hashem has in every Jew that Yira is revealed. Now how does this work? Why is that so? In the same way that when Klal Yisrael are mispaer in Hashem, Yira is produced. How do we know that? What's our hisparis in Hashem? Says Rabbi Nachman, simple. Ki hasparis shel Yisrael b'chinas tefillin. Because tefillin are the way that we are mispaer with Hashem. We say in Mizmiros, pe'eri alai, or pe'erai alai, or pe'eri alab. What's the pe'erai alai? What is our Kadosh Baruch Hu's pe'er that is on Klal Yisrael? Literally alai, we wear it, is our tefillin. Tefillin are nikra pe'er. Yes. Ait Yisrael b'sifar, beautiful, right? We are crowned with tiferes. Ait Yisrael b'gvur on the hand, Ait Yisrael b'sifar on the head. Right, so tefillin is the pe'er of Klal Yisrael, and in our tefillin it says the shevach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim, and it speaks about this that HaKadosh Baruch Hu mamish, is with us and He redeems us, and the parsha of Bechar, and etc. 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 All of this is in tefillin to praise the way in which, or to be mispaer. It's not a praise. I keep using that word like. Pride, that's the word. To pride ourselves, not praise, to pride ourselves in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that reveals the hisparos. And Rabbi Nachman says, through tefillin, which are shenikra pe'er, v'al yadam nisgala yira. When we wear our tefillin, and we do so confidently, proudly, in a very public way, which is what they used to do when they went to war. They all wore their tefillin. And this would scare away the enemies. How do we know that Klal Yisrael, that the tefillin are ois, that the tefillin are a source of might and a source of fear for the enemy? All of the nations of the world will see Ki Shem Hashem Nikra Alecha v'yaru mimeka, and they'll be afraid because they'll recognize that we have something special. You don't mess with the Jews. And not because we're going to, bomb your airports, maybe that's also necessary maybe in 2025, but that's not the Nakuda. It's because look at these people. Look at how godly they are. Look at how elevated they are. Look at how different they are. And that it should be with such clarity that the whole world stops and the whole world can see. And the whole world, like the Psukim describe in Navi, going back to Zayin, will run after us and grab hold of a Jew and say, teach me something, teach me something. So the whole world will see v'yaru mimeka. Ki Shem Hashem nikra alecha. Chazal say this is a reference to tefillin. So we pride ourselves in Hashem, and that causes the emergence of the revelation of Yira on the part of the Umas Ha'olam. Nimsa, it emerges, Shal Yidei Skalos Asparos, that when Tiferes, when pride is revealed, Shemispar in Yisrael Ima Yisbarach, Al Yidei Zanoifel Yira, this causes the emergence of Yira. And it's a very unique kind of year. I wouldn't say that this is fear. They're not necessarily fearful of Klal Yisrael, although that may be so, right? Because they may say, well, listen, they have a pretty big dad, and their father, who says B'ni B'chayr Yisrael is the master of the whole world, and there might be an element of yira there, standard yira. That's true, but I think that it's much deeper. I think it's a yira where I think it's a respect, it's a certain pride, it's a certain awe. All right, and that's generally how we like to translate yira, to get us out of that fearful experience of Hashem, which is total sheker, because that's not how it's supposed to be. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is our Av, and we balance that with different aspects of yira, but it can't all be like that. But generally, if you take the totality of what Hashem is and what He wants to elicit in us and evoke, is the emotion of awe. Right, and that's what we're discussing here. That's the yira that reveals itself when Klal Yisrael are manifesting their kesher to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, literally with the kesher of tefillin with the pe'er. K'moikein, says Rabbi Nachman, the same is true. Al yidei hiskalos ha'isparos shel Hashem yisbarach shem yispar b'Yisrael. The same is going to be true on the other side. When the tefillin Tamari Alma, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wears his tefillin, what does it say in Hashem's tefillin? Mi ka'amcha Yisrael. And the Berditchever Rav explains very beautifully, and it's another tzaddikim as well, but it's very famous from the Berditchever because it's so his style. It was who the Berditchever was. He was the advocate of Klal Yisrael, and so he has this famous teaching in Parshas Bay where he says, why is it that in the Torah Pesach is called Chag HaMatzos and we call it Pesach? Why don't we call it Chag HaMatzos, and if we call it Pesach, it's just a Pesach in the Torah. So he says because the klal is that we wear tefillin in which we have the praise of Hashem, and in Hashem's tefillin He praises us. So we call it Pesach because we're busy praising Hashem jumped over our houses. Hashem calls it Chag HaMatzos because Klal Yisrael, believed so much that they didn't prepare food and they ran out into the midbar and had matzahs. Yes, there's a pasuk that I'm trying to think. Lechtech acher b'midbar be'eretz lo zarua. Right, and so this is the balance between Chag HaMatzos and Pesach that's also encapsulated in the pe'er. We are priding ourselves in Hashem. That's what tefillin is. A person wears tefillin, they're revealing. They're so proud that they're priding themselves on the relationship with Hashem, and Hashem is doing precisely the same thing with His tefillin. It's remarkably powerful. So he says the same is going to be true with the pride that Hashem takes in Klal Yisrael. That's also going to cause for the revelation of Yira. Shezeh bechinas tefillin shel Hashem yisbarach, or in the lashon of the Gemara, tefillin demara alma. These are the tefillin that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was wearing. Like the Gemara says, Minayin HaKadosh Baruch Hu miniach tefillin. How do we know that Hashem wears tefillin? V'yisasham. What does it say in God's tefillin? Shat tefillin shel Hashem yisbarach. Kasav behem hisparos, that in Hashem's tefillin, it's also written over there, the hisparos, the incredible pride that Hashem has in Klal Yisrael. This might be some of the deeper secrets of the Ishbitzer, make some kind of reference to this without going to the depth of it now, to the kesher shel tefillin that HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed Moshe Rabbeinu. That there's a very, very, very deep thing over there. Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to know, why do good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you shall not see the front of my face, you shall not see the tefillin itself, but there's an inyan of kesher shel tefillin, which is incredibly, incredibly deep, very, very deep. I'll just tell you one tiny remez now. There's a lot to talk about with the kesher shel tefillin. It's not really our topic. I'm just bringing it in because in the context of pride, we can understand a little bit more of the way that Hashem loves Klal Yisrael so deeply that there are different anhagas that we might not be aware of. That if you think about it very carefully, the strap of the head tefillin that hangs down as two, which is duality, is really just one strap. The place where the one strap turns into two is the kesher shel tefillin. It's the place where duality kisses unity. And that's a very, very deep inyan. We're not going to get into the whole thing. Ayin Sham, the Ishbitzer, has a very, very profound teaching on this. Okay, but this is the kesher shel tefillin. This is the tefillin of the hisparos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shehu yizbarach mispa'er im Am Yisrael, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mispa'er in Klal Yisrael. He takes such great pride in us. Kidi Isa Sham, as the Gemara tells us, Shetfilin damar alma maksivbu. What does it say in the tefillin of Hashem? Mika amcha Yisrael, ki mi gadol, etc. All these psukim that are praising us. So says the Rebbe, we'll do the math. If our tefillin caused yira in this world because it's the isgalus of our side of the coin where we pride ourselves on our relationship with Hashem, then certainly by HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hisparos, where it's revealed that Hashem takes pride in Klal Yisrael, there's an awesome amount of yira because it's not just that Klal Yisrael pride themselves, okay, they think they have a kesher with Hashem. Hashem has a kesher with us, kesher shel tefillin, with every single Jew. Not just B'Klal Yisrael, but Prat Yisrael, and B'Prate Pratas Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes pride in us. That's incredibly awesome. It's mamish awesome. There's a yira there, right? We have a kesher with the Ein Sof. It's an unbelievable thing. There's a hiskalus of yira. So he says, Al Yedei ha'asparas hazais miskala ha'yira shel Hashem yisbarach. This is revealing the yira, the awe of Hashem, dahainu lira milafanav yisbarach, who is not going to stand in awe of this relationship. Because there's always only the relationship. We can't speak about Hashem outside the context of a relationship with Klal Yisrael. Otherwise, we would never be able to talk about Hashem like we learned in Torah Tesvav, where we spoke about HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chesed, in that He reveals Himself as our Av, as our Melech. So that means that immediately when you speak about Hashem, you're already speaking about the covenant that He has with Klal Yisrael. Otherwise, there's no such thing. Hashem reveals Himself in creation, daika, through Klal Yisrael. And so you're already speaking about the relationship. If you have awe of Hashem, you have awe of Hashem's relationship with Klal Yisrael. You have awe of Hashem as He manifests to and through this nation. Even on the angels that are called the calm ones of the heavens. Shanan is like calm, Shachak is the heavens, the angels. And on all the different strata of existence from the Tchila B'Ad Sof is standing and shaking, not in fear, it's not in a fear, but in awe of what this incredible thing is, this kesher that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has with Klal Yisrael. Because certainly in front of the king himself, like in front of the king, everybody's in awe, everybody's trembling, everybody's stunned and shocked by this incredible revelation of glory. And that's always true. But even more so, B'yom Huledes HaMelech, on the birthday of the king, B'yom Genusia de Malka, or on the day of the king's inauguration, Shaloivish HaMelech Bigdei Asparos, where the king, I think V.E. Day, maybe he came out also wearing was he wearing his whole regalia? Not so much, but recently he was on some occasion. But a king wears, Charles I'm talking about, so the king wears his inauguration. Certainly by the inauguration, right? Certainly, and the golden chariot and the Gnusia de Malka, right? Exactly. So then there's an Inyan of Malchus. You really feel it. You really, really feel it. Even though it's just over here. It's not like it used to be. It used to be the king was the king. You know what I'm saying? Over here, the king is the king. But over there, it was mamish. The inauguration was. You can imagine alachas kama v'kama, but I would say even so, even an American like me, like I don't, I felt something. I felt that you watch the inauguration, that if you feel something, there's a real revelation of pride. There's a revelation of glory. There's a revelation of maybe of history. There's an Indian there. So shaloivish hamelech bigdei hisparos aznes gala hayira yoser v'yoser. So on such an occasion where the king is coming out wearing his bigdei hisparos, so then the yira is so much more, and the sense of gravity and the sense of awe is so much deeper. It was true that prior to this, everybody knows about the king. When someone's able to see it, when you witness it, when you experience it, it's something else. And when a Jew merits through the teachings of the tzaddik to really begin to believe, because it's all about trust. It's about who you trust. That's really what it comes down to. We human beings are deficient in our information. We don't know things. So we need to get information from outside, unless it's coming from inside, in which case you trust your own gut and you trust your own neshama, which is also very, very important. And the Ishbitzer also has a teaching on that, which I have in my book, I believe in chapter 9, chapter 10, the story of our lives, where we speak about Binas Halev, right? A Jew has to trust himself. And then Shavuos, we got the Torah, the Ishbitzer says, from Hashem on our Sinai, but each Jew also got his own and her own internal Torah. I feel sometimes, I was just teaching to the girls in Hasmo, sometimes in our generation we have the Torah in the books, but we've completely forsaken our inner Torah. And our inner sense of right and wrong, it's just like, as long as in Shulchan Aruch it's okay, or as long as we've forsaken that inner voice. And what that leads to is basically a culture that does all the right things, but the cultural spirit is like completely not aligned with the Torah. It's like a novel Rishus HaTorah. So we have all the best SHIURIM and everything, that somehow the inner Torah that's supposed to be really guiding us as to how to engage, not just what to engage with, but how to do it and in what way, sometimes gets lost. So that's a very important thing. But ultimately we rely on information from outside of us. And so then the question becomes like, who do you trust? Who do you trust to mediate the concept of God for you? Is it your, the pulpit rabbi, like on the street? Or is it a tzaddik? Which tzaddik? And there's a moment in a person's life where sort of like they shift toward a particular kind of energy where the collectivity of the messages are so resonant and the approach is so useful and helpful, and it actually lifts them up and gives them advice to get close to Hashem, where like, now that's my authority. You know what I'm saying? In the beginning, a person comes to, let's say, to Breslov, let's just say as an example, right? A relevant example, because we're learning this Torah now for a while, and a person says, okay, I'm thinking about going to Uman, and then they have to know, what did all the Gedolei Torah say about going to Uman? You have to ask your Rav, should I go to Uman, should I not? And then a person spends time learning Rabbi Nachman. It's like, I don't have to act, like Rabbi Nachman said to go to Uman. And I trust that deeply enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, meaning that my whole thing shifts where now this is my Das Torah. This is because I trust it. I trust it more than anything else. Who else should I listen to other than a tzaddik who revealed Torah on this level? So it's all about who you trust. If a person comes to be'emes trust healthy tzaddikim, which are the only kind of tzaddikim there are. The other ones are dressing up. Healthy, meaning the ones that are giving messages of empowerment, the ones that are giving messages of love and of depth and etc. etc. Not ones that are pushing the way, which I mentioned in my Keser Shem Tov Shir Talk on Sunday. And a person begins to really trust them. Then, when a person experiences mispa'al nefesh haroyeh, when a person begins to see, it's an experience of Hashem's pride in them. And they begin to actually believe it. It's not just like a thing you read in a book. Like, I believe that this is true. It's not just like something Rabbi Nachman says, he was like, that he loved Jews so much that he made this thing up. No. My entire concept of God cannot come down through any other way other than the tzaddik. I don't know anything about Hashem otherwise. All I have is Chazal, but I don't know what it means. So Hashem says, believe in tzaddik. I gave you tzaddikim. There's only one way, is through the tzaddik. And then a person's able to really believe Hashem has pride for me. I was just looking at my fingers the other day. At every finger, every part of my finger, Hashem has pride in. And feel that. Do I feel that in my body? Like Hashem really adores me. He created me this way. He wants me to be this way. All of us. And if a person can really feel that, so then that brings a tremendous pride. That brings a tremendous sense of pride, and in that context, the tefillin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are revealed, and tefillin bring about yira. And so the Rebbe is saying, "In kol zeh mispa'al nefesh haroyeh yoser v'yoser." If you can feel it, if you can see it, if you can experience it, oh my gosh, then there's a real yira. It's like, wow, this is really real. This is really real. This is not just a concept. This is mamish real. What's the practical, thing? I don't know. It's a consciousness. It means that I walk around and I really apply this realization that the way that I look at myself is hopefully a little bit the way that Rabbi Nachman is describing Hashem is looking at me. And that brings about this sense of gravity in my life, which we spoke about also in Torah Tesvav, in the context of Yira, where it's not like fear of death, but it's fear of Risham afilu b'chayim kriyim mesim. It's fear of dying while I'm still alive. When it gets fear of not living up to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu believes that I can accomplish, that all of us can accomplish, to really live meaningfully and deeply and fully and in a healthy way. And that's what Rabbi Nachman is saying over here. Im kol zeh mispa'el nefesh haroyeh. If it's the Yom Gnusia de Malka, if it's the Yom Huledes, if it's the birthday of the king, and the king is wearing his clothes, so then you see it. And then you feel it. Perish, Reb Nassan explains, Ki kol davar sheroyim be'einayim, anything that you see with your own eyes, Of course, mispal nafshim is a yoser me'im hayedei isa b'yediyah levad. If you would just know it, or if it would just be something you're reading in a book, it has one level of impact. But if you actually experience it, there's nothing that compares to that. There's nothing. You're there in person. There's nothing that compares to it. Beli ria gemura be'enayim kamuva b'sfarim. Right, without seeing it mamish with your own eyes as it's brought in the Svarim, and as we experience it b'chush in our own lives. Kegoin, for example, kishem misaprin la'adam gedulas hamelach, you can talk about the greatness of the king to somebody, afal pi sheyedea dvarim bebeirur, even if they'll believe you, and they'll really trust what you're telling them. Afal pi kein ein mispal nafshe kol kach li'siyari kol kach me'amelech kamei be'esharoi be'ena mamish es gedulas hamelach. It doesn't compare to how they're going to feel about the king when they're actually standing there and they see the king himself in real life. And is, just accompanied by all of his soldiers and directing them and guiding them. He's certainly going to feel a greater degree of awe. When we see it, that's a different story. So what does it mean seeing it? How do we come to see it? How do we come to see the pride? Says Rabbi Nachman, V'al kein al yidei shahat tzaddik. It's got to be through the tzaddik. So by way of this, that the tzaddik lives in such a way where every step he takes through the forest and every blade of grass that he encounters and every twig and every leaf and every fruit and every branch and everything is screaming the hisparos that Hashem has in Klal Yisrael. And by virtue of that, through the way that tzaddik looks at the world, and the way that tzaddik talks about the world, and the way that tzaddik interacts with the world, to his chasidim, it's clear that this world is so full of Hashem's pride in Klal Yisrael. This is called the birthday of the king. This is the inauguration of the king. Means it's the birthday, or whether it's the actual birth of the king, or the birth of the kingdom, right? And the kingship and the sovereignty, which is the Yom Knusia. Malchus is born. Malchus is bursting forth from the world. Because in what is HaKadosh Baruch Hu king? We know already from Kadmonim, Ein Melech B'loi Am. You do not have a king without a nation, because a king only becomes king based not even only on a nation, but on the willingness of a nation. Because if a king is a king, and he's a king because he's a dictator, he's not a king, he's a dictator. That's not kingship. Kingship is always with ratzon, right? And that's like Gra and all the tzaddikim say, Ki Lashem HaMelucha, but a Moishal B'Goyim. By Klal Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a king, but by the Goyim, at least until Mashiach is coming, until that time period where everything will change, it's Moishal B'Goyim. Right? But Umayshal B'Goyim. But ultimately the pasuk tells us, and that's what we say in Mariv, Umalchusai v'ratzain kibul aleim. Klal Yisrael are receiving Hashem's malchus v'ratzain. So Klal Yisrael are the birthday of the king. Klal Yisrael are the inauguration of the king, right? That is inauguration day, because Klal Yisrael are inaugurating HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Malchus. The tzaddik really does look at this world as the kingdom of Hashem. He really does, because he sees the whole world, every detail of nature, as reflecting the hisparos, the pride, and the trust thereby that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in Klal Yisrael and his relationship and covenant with them. And in so doing, the whole world becomes a malchus to Kedusha, which we've been speaking about as a running theme throughout all the lessons. Our whole experience of reality is that of a malchus, of a kingdom, of a place wherein HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence is very deeply perceived and felt. There he goes. Ki ein melech b'loi am. Because Klal Yisrael are willingly accepting HaKadosh Baruch Hu's malchus upon us. V'yaz, and then b'yom huledes hamalchus, on the day. So that's interesting. He says b'yom huledes. Earlier he said yom huledes shalai, yom huledes hamelech. So here he's saying it's b'yom huledes hamalchus. It's like it's both, right? So on the inauguration of the birthday of the kingdom, yom gnusia de malka, dainishin is gala ha'espar shel Yisrael, when the revelation of the pride of Klal Yisrael occurs. Az mispa'al nefesh haroya. So then the heart of the person who experiences that, who trusts the tzaddik enough through their relationship, like it's not. I wanted to express this a million times. It's not a radical, illogical leap of faith thing. There, Rabbi Nachman said you got to believe in him, so you believe in him. That's not how it goes. A tzaddik has to earn your trust. There's no game. Like, you can't just believe. Anybody could say anything about themselves. There are certain people today who say, or their chasidim at least, say these incredible, remarkable things, but you don't see anything. He's the biggest lamdan. Prove it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he never said anything. So how do you know? Because he walked around with the ksais the whole day. Like, how do you know? Prove it. There has to be proof. Otherwise, we're selling our soul to the who knows where. You know what I'm saying? There has to be proof in the pudding. Like I million times say, I'm not connected to Rabbi Nachman because I like Rabbi Nachman. I'm connected to Rabbi Nachman because I like emes. I like truth. And where I found truth, I connected to it. I didn't grow up this way. Yeah, my father's into Breslov, that helped. But I didn't, it's a little bit not so connected to the way that I grew up at all. It was my own journey very much, and I shopped around, and I looked around, and I tasted from everything. And when I found that tzaddik, that mamish, was aligned with the realities of 2025, and someone who clearly had this level of Ruach HaKodesh that wasn't normal. It wasn't normal. And was revealing Torah that's totally unparalleled. Okay, this is someone I can trust. He's a greater tzaddik than anybody I know. You know what I'm saying? So this is my sharish neshama. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily anybody else's sharish neshama. If you keep on coming back, so obviously there's something here for you. But it doesn't. But for me personally, this is my thing. This is my connection. When a person has that kind of connection, then the teachings of the tzaddik become real. They become really real because I don't know anything else in the world. I don't know who else to trust. I don't know anything else because millions of things could be said on a given topic. I need to trust the greatest authority. Otherwise, what do I know? I need to trust the one with the greatest religious experience. Otherwise, what do I know? Rabbi Nachman makes this point explicitly in Torah Lamed and in Sicha Saran that a person needs to seek the greatest tzaddik of all, not to suffice with saying, no, I'm just a simple yid. I need a simple tzaddik. No. We need the greatest of all. We need to be connected throughout history to the one that mamish revealed Torah like Moshe and Har Sinai, for each generation. Brand new Giluyim. When a person has a kesher to a tzaddik like that, then whatever the tzaddik says is as real as anything else is. And then a person's whole concept of reality changes. All the while that it's an academic study, that it's just an interesting, it's an interesting original thinker, and people write academic papers on Rabbi Nachman. They're missing the boat. Like, there's no Ar Tzaddik there. There's no light. There's no ruach of the tzaddik, Taraches. There's no. When we learn this, it's with a relationship to this tzaddik. It's something else. And it may take time for a person to develop that. Maybe Rabbi Nachman does a bit of a disservice. Maybe, I don't know, Rabbi Nassan a little bit. Obviously, they knew what they were doing, but they throw you right into Torah Beis, and his skashras to tzaddikim. It's people don't know this topic. They don't, and people are troubled. So I put together a whole bunch of sources the other day. I posted it, about many other svarim that speak about the importance of connecting to tzaddikim and how this is a mainstream part of Yiddishkeit, even though we've totally ignored it, largely in sort of the mainstream system, along with many other things. But it's mamish, but it takes time. And from Torah to Torah to Torah, lesson to lesson to lesson, concept by concept by concept. And the differences that we see in our own life, and the way that we look at ourselves, and the way that we look at others, and the way that we look at the world, and our clarity and understanding is then a person starts to build a relationship. A real relationship. It's not like a cult. I'm saying it's not built, because you can opt out. If it's not for you, so opt out. It's something that's earned. For me, Rabbi Nachman earned his position in my mind and my heart, and that's why I could defend it. There's the proof is in the pudding. Stories like these, poems like these, nigunim, the originality, the Torah like this, the advice, ein davar kaze.
But it's a preference to you. Is the greatest tzaddik because he's the greatest tzaddik, or is the greatest tzaddik because you prefer his Torah about it?
It's not a preference. It's not a preference. I think it's a deep soul resonance that might be different for each person in terms of their experience. What I would say, though, is I think it's crucially important. This is generally my approach on education. I think it's crucially important to expose children and teenagers to the whole spectrum. Let them choose. I'm a big fan of Bechira, just like God is. I'm a big fan of free choice. I don't like forcing. And so I don't understand this Indian of, and we spoke about this. You were born in this community, now you must be a Breslover Chassid forever and ever. Lav Dafka. Lav Dafka. How many Breslov, well, not really many Breslovers, I shouldn't say, because Breslovers really don't. But how many Satmars have become Breslov? How many other Hasidus have become Breslov? And that's a wonderful thing. That's not, because especially in this dar, when we have access to everything, every soul deserves to be able to find its own path. And is there a certain hashkacha? A person was born in a certain family, a certain rabbinical tradition. A person was born in a Telzer family. They have a very strong Telzer, a very strong Messiah. A person's born in the Yaki, whatever. Strong Messiah is a person. Is there a hashkacha there? Yeah, and that means that they have a certain kind of nature. So they're supposed to bring out the Yekish side of Breslev or the Telz, side or whatever it is. But if they encounter something that mamish gives them chiyas and brings them close to Hashem, somebody's going to tell them that they should stay away from that because of some kind of, this worldly olam hazeh demographic affiliation. I think it's bizarre. We're souls. We're not bodies. We're certainly not bodies that wear this levush and white socks and black socks and up hats and down hats. This is shigayon. This is not where it's at. We're neshamas that came down into this world to connect ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The tzaddikim are the conductors of that train. If you've been on a train that's not taking you where it needs to take you, so then find another train. But that's the ikr, and I think our affiliation and our whole commitment needs to be mamish HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's so funny because I speak the language of tzaddikim, but I'm really speaking the language of a kesher to Hashem. That's why I'm not impassionately or passionately advocating for any particular tzad. I'm speaking about for me. But I think for every person, if they were given access to the wide spectrum, you see it's happening. Why I think they're so terrified of Breslev. Terrified of Breslev. And the other Hasidus in. What they did to Rav Kluger, without getting into details, you would not believe it. Horrified of it.
Is he Breslev?
Oh yeah. Horrified of it. Why? Because it really, really is effective. It's really a healthy language. And it's a language of anarchy in a certain sense. It's a language of individuality. So systems that like to control, they don't like that at all. Because all of a sudden you're telling somebody to go out into the field and talk to Hashem in their own language, and the whole time you're trying to keep them within your system and in your ba. And Rabbi Nachman's like, we're not having any of that. There are no minhagim in Breslov that are hakpadas. There's no levush that's hakpadas. There's no way of speaking that's hakpada. There's nothing in Breslov other than mamish, an unmediated, unfettered connection to the ikr and the tachlis of why our neshama came into a guf. Period. Systems are horrified of it. So there's a lot of fear. We have to, unless it's mamish.
But no social coercion.
No social coercion. I'm not a fan of coercion of any kind. Certainly not social coercion. I believe enough in Klal Yisrael that if given access, our souls will naturally gravitate toward what speaks to them. And we shouldn't be worried about that. We shouldn't be worried. I'll just say, everybody's happy about Elecha, all the while that I just keep to myself and I sort of go into schools and within their system, I give a class. I guarantee you, if I were to start a Breslov Center here, which is an idea that I toy with from time to time, and start my own thing, oh boy, they'll come out in arms against it. You wouldn't believe. Because the second that I'm taking their kids and bringing them into something else, even though it might be super effective and exactly what the teenagers need, no. Because this is the way it works. And I think that our allegiance should be to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to each person's authentic relationship. How's their davening? How's their learning? How's their identification with a Yid? As a Yid, those are the benchmarks. How is their sensitivity? How's their emotional depth? How's their health? How's their etc. It's the collective package, and I think that it doesn't matter what the branding is. All the while that's what's happening, that's what we're after, right? So you have to understand that v'yaminu u'b'maisha avda is only because v'yaminu b'Hashem. What increases our emunah? And all of this is to say that when a person actually builds a real relationship with a tzaddik, that when the tzaddik speaks about the pride that Hashem takes in you b'prate pratus, you really, really believe it. And then when you believe it, you live with yira. And your life takes on that sense of gravity and that pride of knowing that I actually have this kesher with the Bari Olam. in an incredibly deep way. And I'm wearing his tefillin and he's wearing my tefillin, and Hashem becomes a reality and not just a concept. Says the Rebbe, "Va'oz b'yoyim hu ledas hamalchus yom gnusa de malka." So when through the teaching of the tzaddik and the concept of the tzaddikim, they're revealing the hisparus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tainu she'izgala ha'hisparus ha'Yisrael az mispa'al nefesh haroya. So the person who sees that and who encounters that, so then niskalev noifel yirasai al kulam. So then everybody is feeling that sense of awe. Va'afilu shanani shachak, even the angels. V'zebechinas al Yisrael gavasai. When upon Klal Yisrael is gavasai, like Hashem's pride, Hashem is geya, Hashem is proud of us. Kishen is gala gavasai v'tifartai al Yisrael azai v'uzai bashchakim. Uzai means Hashem's might, and therefore Hashem's awe, right? The yira of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'uzai bashchakim, on the heavens, on the shanane shachak, even on the angels. Al Yisrael gavasai, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu's is his pride is that he has in Klal Yisrael is revealed, then that causes v'uzai bashchakim. Just like our tefillin causes the yira of the Umas Ha'olam that see the depth of our kesher with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'uzai bashchakim. Ois zabechinas yira keniskala el, and ois is that aspect of yira. Like we said, minayin tefillin heim ois li Yisrael. Like we said, hainu she is gali yirasai afilu al shanani shachak ki mispal nefesh haraya. Because when they see it and they watch a person living in this way with confidence and Hashem's pride in us, mamish embodying it and living it like the tzaddik and his people do, wow! Everybody stands in awe. What a thing! What a thing! You know, the main currency in this world is confidence. The main currency. You can have a person who is the most talented, incredibly effective, powerful person. If they don't have confidence, they are finished. And you can have a person who really doesn't have that much to offer. And sometimes you have people, like they don't, like why are they so confident? But they are. And their confidence wins people over. Because they, even if they only know a little bit, you know, sometimes you have people who know tons, but they're always living with like this imposter syndrome that they don't know everything yet. And then you have someone else who just knows Shema Yisrael, but he's so confident with this, like the Israeli taxi driver. He doesn't know anything, but the little bit that he knows makes such an impact on you because he's so he knows it. He really knows it. He's, you know, confidence is really where it's all at. If a person's confident, the R of the tzaddik, like we're speaking about it, especially Rabbi Nachman is, and Lubavitch as well, there's a huge confidence. Rabbi Nachman said, Nitzachti va'anatzeach. He said, I was victorious and I will be victorious. In Lubavitch they say, Dida natzach. And by both it's netzach. It's interesting. Breslov and Lubavitch. It's big, strong confidence. Big, strong pride. Incredible eyes. That's all it is. Al Yisrael gavasai, then uzai bashchakim. Val yidei eskalas ha'esparos, shezeu bechinas eskalas ha'yira, says the Heilige Rebbe Schus Yagen Aleinu, when the hisparos, when the pride is revealed, which causes the revelation of yira, al yidei zen eskala ha'ratzai. That's revealing the ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shezeu bechinas ava. And when there's yira because of the pride, there's also ava because of the ratzon. Like we said, how is HaKadosh Baruch Hu creating the world? Lemispar, that pasuk, keep on slipping a second. Yatziv gvulas amim lemispar b'nei Yisrael. Like we said yesterday, Hashem creates the whole world surrounding the different facets that reflect Klal Yisrael's unique energies, right? The details of Hashem's pride in Klal Yisrael. Memela, that tzaddik is revealing the hisparis of Hashem, which is the ratzon of Hashem, the motivation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had in creating the world, which was Klal Yisrael, right? Which was that vision of this nation that would stand up as a mamlachas kohanim and a goy kadosh, and that's ava, that's love. He says that's the case on the day of the king's genusia, on the day of the king's inauguration. Shaloivish big day hisparos, when the king is wearing these incredible, glorious, kingly royal vestments and garments. Shaz naifel yira gedola al kulam, and that's like we described. There's a tremendous yira there. and everybody's like just trembling. After that, the king reveals his ratzon. He appoints his cabinet. And then and the king gives out gifts, and the treasury is open, and the king wants everyone to celebrate on the day that he celebrates. That also happens on the day of the Gnusya de Malka, which means that a person who's connected to the Tzaddik's way of engaging with nature and really trusts that when the Tzaddik walks through nature, they're causing for there to be activated the Ratzon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had for creation, which is his pride in Klal Yisrael, which is the Bechina of Tefillin, which causes Yira, and to tremble because of the strength of that incredible eternal bond between the Infinite One and his infinite nation, the Aman Netzach, Lo Yishaker. At that same moment, there's Ava as well. This, says Rabbi Nachman, is how the tzaddik himself, speaking about himself, is revealing for us Ava and Yira. Ava and Yira, says Rabbi Nachman, are only possible. You can't speak about Yira Shemayim and you can't speak about Avas Hashem until you speak about his sparos. That's the Gilui of Rabbi Nachman in this Torah. It all comes down to pride. If we don't speak about pride, then we don't feel the gravity of the mattering that we began to speak about in Torah Tesvav, because I don't really, who says Hashem, okay, Stam, I'm a Yid, so Stam. But that tzaddik is bringing out, you're not just a Yid. Every hair on our well, now beards, most of us, every hair on our heads, or every little teeniest part of our body is full of the intentionality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the pride that he constantly takes in that produces a sense of import, of mattering. That's the Yira. That's an awesome thing. Like the creator of the entire earth and the creator of all the cosmos and the master of history created me. Like actually me, this that you see in front of you, this came from it. Like this came from him. My neshama is a part of him. And he has nachas from me. And even in my peah, which I don't have, but I said anua, that's part of it, by the way. That's part of the reason why I don't do this stuff. Because I don't believe in any external affiliation with anything. I'm mamish, the way I dress like I dress, because that's how I was brought up. But I don't want people to think now I became a Breslover. There's no such thing. You stay what you are. It has nothing to do with chitzonius at all, ever. That's my... So that's my thing. I don't have the long pace. But even if I make some movement on my metaphorical peah, right, just on some edge of my life, I make some kind of little, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu has such pride from this. So then I feel that gravity, and then I feel that tenderness of that love, like a father to a child, mamish. That the father really believes in the kid. And it comes from tremendous love, but there's also that sense of gravity, like there's a real relationship here. This is my dad, but it's my dad, but it's my dad, but it's my, and that's like the energy of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, like Hashem he's the judge, but he's also our father, but and this is how it is. Hashem is mamish, our father. And he takes pride in us, and he has love for us, and he believes in us. There and only there becomes possible for a person to have Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. Otherwise, the Avas is just words, and the Yira is usually something unhealthy or detached or not real. It has to be anchored in pride. That's the Gilui of the Rebbe. Pride. We'll just go a little bit further. U'kemaisha al yedei esgalas ha'asparas shemegalin at tzadikim. And the same way that when the tzaddik is revealing the hisparos, the pride shemispar Hashem Yisbarach im Am Yisrael with our Kodesh Baruch, with Klal Yisrael im Yisrael, al yedei zeh hi megalim aratzayna shel Hashem Yisbarach sheish b'chol davar v'davar. Then everything is revealed, and the reason why Hashem created each creature, each aspect of every facet of creation is revealed. Kibiyam Genusia de Malka, Shazwas Galus Hasparos, on the birthday of the king, on the birthday of the kingdom, right? On the inauguration day, when there's a revelation of pride, as I was Galus Ritzonius Barach, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon is revealed, Ki Achar Kachu Megala Ritzon L'chalecha V'echa V'noisan HaMatanos, U'Maraimim Karnam L'kol Echa V'echa Kavir Ritzona K'niskal El. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals his Ratzon and elevates each and every one. And this is the aspect of the revelation of love. Initially, there's a great sense of awe, and there's a great sense even of fear, right? But not like fear of, but fear of messing up this job, or fear of something getting in the way of the relationship. That's the fear. So there's yira. Once we see the closeness of the king to each and every one of them, and the relationship that he has with each and every one of them, then they come close to him, and then they really develop a love for him, because they sense his love for them. Pirish, all of the ritzinus of the Bria is revealed. Why Hashem was motivated to create each creature in the way that He created it. This is playing out in the relationship between Hashem and Klal Yisrael. When there's a revelation of pride, there's a revelation of yira, and then there's a revelation of ava and love. Nimtza, it emerges, and that's what we had begun the lesson with. Sheyira v'ahava nimshachin al yidei hatzadik. That yira and ava be'emes can only be through iskashus tzadikim. That can only be Shemegale ha'hisparos, that the Indian of tzaddikim, like Rabbi Nachman, like the Lubavitcher Rebbe particularly, and like many others, like the Kedusha Levi, was called the Pe'er of Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Nachman said that when the Berditchever goes traveling, everyone has to check their tefillin, because he's the Pe'er of Klal Yisrael, and when the Berditchever goes traveling, he's going to go through Bizyonis, and people are not going to respect him properly, and that's a Pegam in tefillin, and that's going to cause everybody's tefillin to be blemished. When the Berditchever goes traveling, you have to check your tefillin. And the Berditchever is the Pe'er of Klal Yisrael. That's his whole thing. So the tzaddik that's megala, the sparish, al yidei zemoitzi kolor etzonos, shayla Hashem is barak b'chol bria, and that causes for the whole bria to reveal its secrets as to why Hashem created it in that way. Shal yidei zenas yira va'ava. This causes yira and ava. V'zeh b'chinas, and this is the pasuk in Tehillim. What this will finish. Ki tiferes uzamai ata. Tiferes uzamai ata. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are pride. And Uzama, you are our pride and our might and our strength. Uberetzaincha tarim karnenu, and in accordance with your will, tarim karnenu, you elevate our crown, you elevate our Karen. Says Rabbi Nachman, it's all in this pasuk. And this is how he revealed brand new teachings in the Torah that nobody else did. Tiferes uzamai zebechinas hayira. Right, the ois, that's a result of tiferes. That's the yira, that's a result of the isparos. Shenes gala al yidei iskalas isparos keniskal el ki ozu b'chinas yira, because ois is tefillin and ois is yira. V'hazai, so after ki tiferes uzamai ata, after the ois that's revealed through the isparos, through the pride that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in us, azai b'rtzoincha. Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzin is revealed, and that's Kesher, Mekushar, to the pride that Hashem has in Klal Yisrael, and therefore created creation the way that He did, Tarim Karnenu. Ki Megala Ritzainai U'Maraimim Karnai Shakol Echad V'Echad. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals His will, and He elevates the state of every single person's sense of self, and their sense of worth, and their value, that so many people are struggling with today. But where are we going to get our value from? Not from other people. Get our validation from the tzaddikim who are teaching us about the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees us. Shal yidei zeh hiskalus ava keniskal el nimsa. So now it emerges, this is all like a pirush on the first line, like many of the Torahs are, shahat tzaddik megala hayira va'ava. Where does yira and ava come from? The tzaddik. And the kesher to the tzaddik. Why do we connect to tzaddikim? Because the tzaddikim enable us to genuinely connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's the ikar. Vayaminu b'Hashem, and therefore, over my sha'at. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
Could it be that when it says originally the Yom Huledas HaMelech, then the Yom Gunus Yom is an explanation of that.
Right,
saying
right, exactly.
When the Malchus.
Right, when the Malchus, yeah. So I was saying, back then, I mean, it's also true for the Yom Huledas of a Melech. Sometimes the king has a birthday and they throw a big bash. But the way that it unfolds, it would seem that Yom Huledas of Melech is Yom Huledas of Malchus.
ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני